Thanks for being here and speaking truth
Thank
to power.
you.
Back to climate change. I've read your Off Fossil Fuels for a Better Future Act, which calls for an end to taxpayer subsidies and funding of the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
And a transition to 100% renewable by
Yes.
2035. According to the UN, 14 to 18% of greenhouse gas emissions actually come from animal agriculture, and it seems like a huge blind spot in most of the plans put forth to address the climate crisis.
I agree.
Due to this link between animal agriculture and climate change, would you, in a similar way, call for an end to subsidies for animal agriculture in the same way you have for the oil and gas industry?
Thank you for pointing this out. And you're exactly right. This is the big blind spot because it hits really close to home for a lot of people, and it requires a personal choice. If you care about protecting the environment, if you care about climate change, you care about clean water, clean air, it requires you to start to make some different decisions as an individual. What to speak of the grand policies about how we can address this issue. So yes, fossil fuels is important. There is a real role that this plays in this. We need to transition to a completely green, renewable energy economy. And instead of subsidizing dirty energy sources of the past, let's invest in our future in a way that protects our environment, that provides us with the energy security that we need in this country so we're not dependent on what's happening in another country around the world, and that also actually brings down the cost of energy, cheaper than what we have been seeing already, dependent on fossil fuels. I've introduced legislation to start to spur this change in agriculture already, to be able to take those resources that are going towards the big multinational agribusiness corporations, the subsidies that are going to those like Monsanto and Syngenta and many others, and instead dedicate these resources towards regenerative farmers, towards sustainable and organic farming, towards those who are farming and growing food to be able to feed people. Ultimately, there are a lot of individual choices that any one of us makes, but as we're talking about holding leaders accountable, it strikes me that as we hear from some of the loudest voices who are expressing their concern about climate change, they then have no problem going and eating a big steak at the end of the day and not seeing the hypocrisy in that. Every one of us gets to choose what kind of food we put in our bodies, but you can't stand there and say, well, climate change, climate change, climate change, but then you're not walking the talk in taking action to address one of the biggest contributors to the environmental threats that we face. Thank you.
Last question.